Jacob had always been looking for a job that would allow him to earn money quickly and leave this God-forsaken town far behind. After finishing school, he had few prospects. College seemed unattainable, and job opportunities were limited to warehouses, construction sites, and factories. When he was offered a position as a general laborer at a meat processing plant, he didn't hesitate. The money was needed urgently. It seemed temporary. He had no idea that this plant would become his worst nightmare. The factory was old, a typical mid-20th century building with brick walls, rusted metal structures, and outdated equipment. Trucks stood at the gates, filled with livestock that sensed their end was near. Inside, workers in blood-stained aprons moved mechanically, focused solely on their tasks. Jacob was about to become part of this system. The path between life and death for the animals was short. They entered a dimly lit chamber through a worn-out passage where they were stunned with an electric shock. Some died instantly. Others perished later when they were still alive as they were hooked and sent for butchering. Jacob tried not to think about it, but the smell of blood and intestines seeped into his skin, his clothes, even his thoughts. The foreman's name was Hank. A burly, bald man with tattooed arms, he had long since stopped paying attention to what was happening around him. "Get used to it or get lost," he told Jacob when he first pinched his nose at the stench. Getting used to it was tough, but he tried. He scrubbed floors, removed waste, and pushed carts filled with intestines, tails, and severed ears. The worst part was looking into the eyes of the animals. They remained alive even after death. "Hey, Sophie!" the foreman shouted. One had to yell to be heard in this place. The noise from carcasses rolling down the conveyor belt, the hum of refrigerators, the splash of water, and the clanking of machines all merged into a strange guttural roar. Nearby, women in white coats and plastic aprons were cutting something on dull aluminum tables. One of them approached. "Sophie, this is the new guy. Show him around," the foreman yelled before walking away. Jacob greeted her with a nod, knowing he wouldn't be heard otherwise. Sophie, a woman in her 40s with her hair tucked into a plastic cap, gave him a silent wave. Jacob understood. He had to follow her. At first, he constantly checked the time, but eventually he stopped. The only break was lunch, huge portions of meat in every possible form. Boiled, fried, stewed, liver, kidneys, tongue. Even meat-based compote wouldn't have surprised him. On the first day, he couldn't swallow a single bite, but later he got used to it. But one day, something happened that made him swear off meat forever. A massive black bull stood in the pen, its bloodshot eyes scanning the surroundings. This was no ordinary animal. There was something unnatural about it. No one knew who had brought it here, but everyone immediately sensed that something was very wrong. The bull roared and thrashed in the pen, breaking the barriers. Finally, they drove it onto the platform, but even there it refused to submit. When the butcher jabbed the electric prod into its forehead, something strange happened. The bull didn't collapse. It remained standing. The butcher's face went pale. The next thing he knew, a terrifying blow sent him flying. Panic erupted. As the wounded worker was taken away, another butcher stepped forward to finish the job. But as soon as he picked up the prod, the bull lunged forward. Its horns pierced the man's body as it tore through the barriers. The slaughterhouse turned into a battlefield. Workers scattered, hiding behind crates and machinery. No one knew what to do. The bull rampaged through the room, overturning tables and knocking people off their feet. It moved quickly, as if guided by an unseen rage. Jacob froze in the shadows, afraid to move. He watched as the bull gored a man, sending him flying straight into the meat grinder. Women screamed and ran, but the slaughterhouse had become a trap. Then someone cut the power. In the darkness, all that could be heard was the heavy breathing of the enraged beast and the sickening splash of blood under its hooves. Jacob knew the exit doors were close, but opening them without drawing attention was impossible. The beast sensed him. It stepped closer. In the pitch black, Jacob heard a dull thud and a squelch. The bull had knocked over a container filled with scraps. Why did it do that, he wondered. It's just an animal. Or is it? His eyes adjusted to the dark. Jacob crept toward the doors. He could see their outline. All he had to do was grab the handle and pull. Freedom was just a step away. But the damn bull stood right at the exit. Jacob took a step forward and immediately slipped. He crashed onto the floor. The next moment he heard the pounding of hooves. The bull loomed over him. A shaft of light cut across its head, and Jacob saw its eyes. At that moment, he understood. The bull knew. It knew what they wanted to do to it. It knew why it had been brought here. It understood more than any livestock should. "I won't. I'll never do it," Jacob whispered desperately, unaware of what he was saying. He was praying. To whom, he didn't know. The bull stood motionless. Then slowly it shook its head. Jacob gasped for breath. The doors creaked open. Light flooded the devastated slaughterhouse. The bull calmly turned and walked outside. It didn't run, didn't charge, didn't stomp its hooves. It just left. This was the only recorded case in the plant's history where an animal, having reached the butchering stage, walked out alive. Jacob remained on the blood-stained floor, watching the bull disappear around the corner of the building. Then suddenly, gunshots rang out. He looked down. A severed bull's eye lay on the floor, staring at him, unblinking. After that day, Jacob worked at the plant for another 2 years. But with each passing day, he felt that he couldn't stay there any longer. The sight of butchered carcasses, the smell of blood, and the screams of animals haunted his dreams. One day, he simply packed his things and left. Forever. He never ate meat again.